What is the biggest mistake in the propagation saffron bulbs? In my idea, all the process of the growing saffron indoors in one side and the propagation saffron bulbs in the other side. Very complex. Everything should be calculated. Now, what is the biggest mistake in the propagation phase? Using the water less or more than the standards. The majority of you, unfortunately, the amount of the water in the inside, in the cover, in the vertical farm, in the greenhouse, you use the amount of the water that's using in the growing saffron outdoors, in the traditional. They are the amount of the water that we apply in the growing saffron indoors. In vertical farm, completely different from the outside, in the traditional. Because in some sources, in some articles, you can read, unfortunately some of you use the GPT chat and unfortunately receive the mistake answer. You should calculate the amount of the water, for example, for the 10,000 kilogram saffron bulbs. For the 10-ton saffron bulbs, the amount of the water is needed in the growing saffron outdoors in the traditional way is near 3,000 cubic meter water. 3,000 cubic meter is needed in the 3 months, of the winter. That is very clear. The water, the 90% of water that you should give to the saffron bulbs is in the 3 months of the winter. But in the growing saffron outdoors, I told you, the amount of the water you need for the propagation saffron bulbs for 10-ton saffron bulbs is near 3 million liter water. This is huge. But some of you, for example, in your greenhouse, you have 10,000 kilogram saffron bulbs. In your room, you have 10-ton saffron bulbs, and unfortunately, the majority of you amount of the water that used in the traditional form, you want to use it in the vertical form. For example, you want to in the vertical farm use 3 million liter water. This is a very terrible if you want to use, because in the outside, the amount of the water you see in the article, this is for the dry season. This is for the outside, because in the room, we don't have any evaporation. Ventilation is very weak. We don't have any irrigation, we don't have any rain, all covered. The evaporation is very low because we don't have any wind. But the outside, this is also we have only 40 centimeters, 3 centimeters, 20 centimeters substrate, okay? But evaporation, we cannot have too much evaporation. Also the substrate, the maximum 40 or 50 centimeters substrate that we want to use on the shelves. But in the outside, we have near the 1 meter soil, 2 meters soil in the ground, in the outside. Okay, this is completely dry. We have sometimes directly sunlight to the soil. Some of we have the speed with the 100 kilometers per hour. We have the speed of the air is very high. We have the wind, we have the evaporation, is completely different. Because when you give the water, even the water has the ability to penetrate to even 1 meter and go to even the 2 meters and penetrate to underwater and the soil, go to the other layer of the earth, and therefore completely different. The amount of the water, all the source have written in the soil. This is 3 million liter water for the propagation, 10,000 kilogram saffron bulb. For the outside climate, that's completely different. You have in the 100 meters, you have the small room, maximum 200 square meters. In the room, we don't have any speed, we don't have any evaporation, we don't have any sunlight. Your sunlight is a maximum 1,000 or 2,000 lux. But each water that you give to the shelves, doesn't have ability that immediately light outside evaporates. Okay? Therefore, the biggest mistake, you bring the water and the vertical farm And all, for example, you have on the substrate, you have 10 tons salt and you want to give, okay, the source has written in the 3 million liter water, and if you go the least amount of the water, all your saffron bulbs will be rotten. All will be saffron bulbs will be spoiled. That is a very, very dangerous. 3 million liter water as very dangerous. And unfortunately, some of you in the propagation phase, you used to perlite. This substrate is a very dangerous. Perlite and the cocoa peat. You mix the perlite and the cocoa peat and give water. And when you see 24 hours, 7 days, this is a humid. Saffron bulb is unlike a strawberry, unlike cucumber. This plant is unlike the other crops. All crops in the spring and the summer are alive, and the winter, the majority of the crop and the winter are asleep, and the spring and the summer are alive. But the saffron bulb is unlike. In the winter is in the autumn and the winter is alive, and the summer and the spring that all plants are alive. This is asleep in the dormancy phase. And some of you, I have seen in some of the videos, use the perlite, the cocoa peat, and 24 hours. After the 2 weeks, 3 weeks, all the saffron bulbs will be spoiled, and the new bulb will be small, and the leaves, instead of the, after flowering in the 3 months of the winter and the 1 month of the spring, all the saffron bulbs leaves should be green, completely green. When you have the green leaves, it means you have the great propagation, you have the new bulb will be increased, the weight of the saffron bulb will be increased, because this bulb's 10 years with you, near the 10 years with you, near the 12 hours with you. But if you want to use this formula, you should say goodbye with your saffron bulb. Therefore, very important, you should calculate. This is not a month. In addition that I have mentioned in my book, the step by step of the formula of the water, but you should every day. This is a process. Even with the formula that is the less than the 3 million liter water, you should every day. This is depending of the cultivation depth of the bulbs. In which centimeters? Near the some factors you should consider for the amount of the water that you want in the 3 months of the winter you should give. But when you give the water, for example, in the special amount that you want to consider, you should see what is happening in your substrate. Which substrate you use? Your soil, which structure? You should give your the substrate to the laboratory. When you receive the amount of the structure of your soil, therefore you can consider. In your bulbs, what is the cultivation of your bulbs? Which air handling unit you use? What is the speed of your air handling unit? How much ventilation you have in your room? What is your exhaust loose exhaust in your room? The windows that you sometimes open for the receiving the amount of the CO2, you should complete 24 open or sometimes it's closed. Everything in your climate, in your country, what is the outside region, you should consider all factors near the substrate that you use, the structure substrate that you use, cultivation depths of the substrate that you use on the shelves, in the which cultivation depths you put your bulbs, and also the distance between the two shelves, the amount, the air handling unit that you use, the velocity, the distance between the plastic dot. Okay, therefore you should have the strong air handling unit, you should have the strong, and therefore you will have the increase, and the water would be in the ester. For example, in this growing saffron outdoors, we only in the 4 times give the water. Only 4 times give the water. For example, we give sometimes for the 1 hectare that is the cultivate 10,000 kilogram saffron bulbs. 1 time give 100 liter water, then 200 liter water directly in the 1 time. The huge water only the 4 time, but each time very huge. But in your room, in the saffron greenhouse, you cannot give in the 1 time. You should gradually give the water, and even after each giving the water, you should see the process. You should see the water is the good. For example, for your eyes, you should see if the water evaporate, you can, for example, 2 days later, 3 days later, again the water. But even the small water, if you give to the substrate, if you see after the 7 days or 2 weeks is completely wet, you cannot again give the next amount of the next portion of your water, because that is very clear. You have the wrong in your ventilation, you have the wrong in the substrate. But that is a very clear. You cannot use perlite or the cocoa peat. Perlite, the cocoa peat, you should, when you give the perlite or cocoa peat, 24 hours should be wet. But saffron bulb is a very sensitive. Maximum 4 hours or the 8 hours can tolerate the wet. Saffron bulbs need to receive the bulb, again dry, again wet, again dry. You cannot 24 hours. And all fungal diseases come to your farm. All the contamination come to your farm. Therefore, these saffron mother bulbs that gave you flower immediately will be removed, and therefore the leaves will be yellow. Therefore, because in the 3 months of the 4 inches, that is very clear, you should always keep your saffron bulbs leaves green. How? With the amount of the fertilizer that you use, with the amount of the water. This is like a play. If you keep this formula and you were able to 4 months, even the 5 months of the propagation, if your saffron bulbs is completely green, 100 green, not, for example, in the tip yellow, in the some part of yellow, completely green, it means your watering is the good, your fertilizer is the good. But with the using of the fertilizer, using of the water, using the substrate, using the cultivation depths, the distance between the flowering and the giving after the flowering, how many days after finishing flowering you give the substrate to for the propagation. All the things play important role in the weight of the saffron bulbs. That is very clear. If you have the wrong in the calculating formula for the substrate, calculating formula for the giving the fertilizer, after the 1 month, the tip of the leaves converted the yellow. Then after the 1 month, 2 weeks, converted to the yellow, that means you have the wrong, and you give a lot of water or less water. But other thing, the one side, even you are not allowed to give low water. Some of you, okay, you saw my video and scared, okay, I want to give the water slow. Nearly 90% of the weight of the saffron bulb from the water. Water determines the weight of the saffron bulbs. Water determines the weight of your saffron bulb, because if you don't have the heavy bulbs, it doesn't good for you. It is important the weight of each bulb be heavy. But if your saffron bulb, if you want to scared after giving the water and very low giving the water, okay, therefore maybe this green, but the weight of the each bulbs is a very low. The water determines the weight. But how? In the correct time, with the beside the giving the water, you should give the fertilizer, the strong fertilizer, according to the analysis of your substrate. These are determines the water. I don't say you shouldn't give the water or you shouldn't give huge. You should give the amount of the water that saffron bulb need according your substrate. These are guarantee your success in the saffron bulbs. But some of you, these 3 months of the winter, this is the golden months, known as the golden time, because you cannot give in the 1 month of the spring. For example, in the spring, all the saffron bulb leaves converted to the yellow. When the leaves is the yellow, even if you give the best fertilizer, saffron bulbs cannot propagate the new bulbs. You cannot have the heavy bulb. Then the saffron bulb leaves are green, you should give the fertilizer. Some of the farmers, due to, for example, the money, or even access to the fertilizer, wait. For example, in the middle of the winter, give the fertilizer. Middle of the winter is the very risky activities, because we don't know when your saffron bulb leaves converted into yellow. Some of you after the 1 month converted to the yellow, after the 2 months. Therefore, I recommend immediately after the creating the roots or the leaves, when your leaves is green, early green, you should immediately give the fertilizer, and the saffron bulbs converted to the successful propagation. Saffron bulbs, this is the saffron bulbs via three-way, with the three-way receive the nutrient for the new bulbs, for the new heavy bulb, via roots, via leaves, and via the mother bulbs. 3 important. You should, with the giving fertilizer and the water, you should take care of the mother bulb. When the mother bulbs is healthy, is able beside the leaves and the roots, give the nutrients in the new bulb, the daughter bulbs. But for example, if you choose the wrong fertilizer, if you don't know anything about the water, you kill the mother bulbs 2 weeks after the flowering. When the mother bulbs is removed and completely spoiled and is completely dark, and therefore the new bulbs are able only to receive the nutrients from the leaves and the roots. Therefore, when you have the three sources, the mother bulb, the leaves and the roots, this is the good news. With the three sources, we can have the heavy bulbs. But if you forget the mother bulbs and only focus on the leaves and the roots, you should say goodbye with the heavy saffron bulb. Even if your mother bulb, the mother bulb that give you flower is able, even the 1 month is alive. We have the nutrients inside the mother bulb, and it's able in the 1 month, in the 2 months, start to giving the nutrients to the new bulb, to the children. But if you use the amount of the water less or more than standards, therefore the mother bulbs converted to the shrinking and only for. I'm sure when you damage to the mother bulb, other parts will be damaged. Because when the mother bulb started to the spoiling and the shrinking, I promise you the leaves also will be yellow. Because when we have the negative things doesn't act only on the mother bulbs, also inside to the roots, to the stem. Therefore, your task with using the correct fertilizer, with the correct amount of the water, you should always keep the green. Green leaves, it means you have the green, good mother bulbs, you have the good rooting the system. Only 3 months after with your month, this is the golden month, only of your golden months, and you can apply. Thank you. Also, I want to, near the 2 years my book price, I didn't change the book price. In this month, I want to increase the price of my book. People that want to purchase my book, if they purchase my book today or tomorrow, I can give them with the previous price that in this 2 years. But this is very clear. The day after tomorrow, this is the new price. I have determined the new price for my book. Thank you. If you want to my book, you can text me on WhatsApp 0098 935 825 3945. Thank you.